Coming up on the Cannacribs podcast.
10,000 customers come through the door and tell me the same thing. They're like, hey, man, do you have a book or something I can read on how to do this? And I'm like, hey, man, do you have a book on how I can grow? Okay. All right. Then we're on the same page. So we have 3 different models for our extractors that kind of embody the 3 different types of customers.
Hey, I'm Nick, creator of Cannacribs and Growers Network, where we have educated millions of people on how to elevate their craft. I have toured some of the largest grow operations, befriended the best growers, and built a network of the top cannabis companies. Join me on this next adventure where I document history with the pioneers shaping the global cannabis industry in real time. Welcome to the Cannacribs podcast. Hey, thanks for watching. Would you like your own Cannacribs episode? What about $20,000 in facility upgrades? Well, my friend, you're in luck. Sign up today for the Cannacribs and Hawthorne sweepstakes for the chance to win. The sweepstakes ends April 2023, open to U.S. residents excluding Florida and New York and over the age of 21. You can check out the full sweepstakes rules on the application link below. I'll also post in the comments. Best of luck. Jason, where did it all begin? How did you get on this path with the plant?
Well, about 10 years ago, my brother, he actually started manufacturing these vacuum chambers that are used to degas simply multiple different varieties of things, like from plastics and resins to anything that could be used in hobby and craft industry. And he started selling them. And in that process of selling them, certain customers started buying them, and everybody that was in the extract market started picking up, buying these chambers, and they were being used to post-process from growing and complete the final extract process and purge out all the solvent. So it really started with him putting together these vacuum chamber systems in kits that later evolved into, hey, we're building something that's at the end of the process.
Right.
What's before it?
Right. And what was your background? Did you just kind of jump in with your brother? Did you have an engineering background or anything like that?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting story. So I was in the military and I left the military and I graduated from school at the same time as my brother, because we both went in at the same time because I had service time underneath my belt. He went to school for accounting and I went for electrical engineering. And that background there gave me kind of enough tools to start working on things and understanding how to build things and make things. But going back to your question, the thing that my brother had started was, he started running into weird questions and stuff. Him being an accountant guy, people would say, hey, what's a torr? What's this? What's that? How many inches of mercury do I need to do this? So he started asking me, hey, do you mind answering some questions and helping out with these things? And it didn't take very long for me to kind of put the pieces together to understand that there was more going on here than just selling vacuum chambers.
Yeah. And coming from the military, did you have any preconceived notions and entering into the space, maybe answering some of these questions from cannabis extracts or cannabis extractors?
Not at all. I came from a conservative background, but that didn't really have a bearing on it. I lived in California, in San Diego, for 5 years when I was in the military. So, the first store I'd seen was probably back in 2006 that popped up near my house. And I was like, wow, what's this place? And then a few months later, it was all taped off by the FBI. I had been in that culture and kind of had the little bit more free spirit.
Nice.
So for me, there was really not much to jump into. I was excited by it because I think that from the get-go, I knew that it would be a new emerging market.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of seeing how our society has taken pace to it, I knew that it was just kind of this eventual thing that's going to happen like everybody else. You just knew that something's going to give and it's just going to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your service. I know that mindset, that work ethic, stays with you for life, right? And I think some of the most successful companies, and especially in cannabis as well, are run with military backgrounds. So it's super cool to see that you guys are running this, and it's family owned and operated. So is it just you and your brother? Are there other family members involved?
Oh, geez, there's a lot of family members, maybe too many. No, we have, it's myself, my brother, he's actually the president and founder. I'm the vice president, co-founder. My cousin, he's our general manager. He's actually from Colorado. And then I have my uncle, who's a production manager. He's pretty much in charge of the day to day to make sure that the warehouse is in order, products are made, shipped, everything gets out in a timely manner because we want to be, as much as we can, like the Amazon model.
Yeah.
My mother, she heads up the department for shipping, and I would say majority of it's like claims and tracking. She does a really good job when that pallet goes missing, she'll figure out where it is
She'll
and
hunt
she'll
it
dig it
down.
up for you. And then, I've had a variety of different help from family members, my father, my uncle, a couple other uncles that are all, I would say successful entrepreneurs who've owned their own companies and been able to give us guidance when we needed help with things or suggestions to keep us on our path.
Absolutely. So, are there any challenges in running a family company? I know it can either go really, really well or the opposite direction, and sometimes those holiday dinners and birthday barbecues can be a little contentious.
Yeah, believe it or not, I think that for us, it's been tremendously successful just because of the type of people that we are. I'm actually very different, I would say, from my brother and also from my mother and my uncle. I think that we all have very different personalities, but have very strong business strengths. And when we kind of bring those things together, it works out really well. I'm not going to say that we don't have the moment every here and there where it's just that frustration. But I think that also helps because I think we have a little bit more compassion for each other once we
Mhm.
get through the emotional anger of something or frustration. It's like, hey, I need more money to build this thing. Well, we don't want to do it right now. Well, I don't care.
Yeah.
And those types of moments, they can be heated, but I think what it comes down to is really just communication. So, running a business like this with a lot of family members, it does present some challenges, but I think we've done a really good job managing it together.
Nice. And you mentioned that you were stationed out in San Diego and, kind of picked up on the cannabis community out there. But you guys are based in Illinois, is that right?
Yes, we are.
Nice.
So that does that actually posed a pretty tricky problem for us. Like I said before, I graduated from Northern Illinois University here in Illinois, and so did my brother. And it's not too far from here, maybe about a 40 minutes drive. And he was working for a a firm, an accounting firm, and I was working for a company doing engineering as well. And it just kind of made sense for us to pick a spot in between where both of us lived. So we did. And we just started going into this vacuum chamber thing. And before you know it, the company just got big enough where, all right, well, we're in Illinois and this kind of sucks because there's things we need to do that we can't do here. The customer base sure as heck wasn't here. We had conversations about let's move to California, let's move to Colorado, let's move to Michigan. But what kept holding us back is how much access we have to help engineering, shipping, packaging, literally everything coming out of Chicago just was a huge benefit for the company.
That made sense. So personnel wise and team wise, you were able to supply the customers with a really strong backyard. So
Absolutely.
moving would have been, shaking that up and um, being right next door to that Michigan market, I'm sure has brought its fair share of customers. I mean, they're just blowing up out there. Did you guys see early days and maybe even today, like a bulk of your customers coming from that market?
Absolutely. No, I love my Michigan customers. They were terrific in the early days. The caregiver network, was very integral in helping us grow our company and our brand. And I'm very appreciative of that. But at the same time, I think we filled a niche where the few competitors that were out on the West Coast, you couldn't get there. You couldn't see any of this equipment. You couldn't see what an extractor was. You couldn't, put your hands on it and see it or get it in a timely fashion. Some of these guys, they just want it tomorrow and they just drive down and come get it. So the cool thing was we had great access to those customers out there, and we got to see them grow, especially me. A lot of people come in the door still today and they're like, hey, they know where my office is and they'll say hello. But these customers started out with this small idea and a small extractor and 1 pound of biomass. And then before you know it, they're like, I'm working for this lab and I need all this stuff. So, we got to really, I felt very proud of what we did because I felt like we really had that American spirit where people could change their lives and build a brand for themselves and be successful with something they absolutely love to do. And I'm so happy that we were able to take them on the journey.
So you guys started out in Illinois. You're still there today, and a lot of your success has come from that Michigan market. And I'm assuming the first product innovation with your brother, maybe it wasn't built for cannabis, but over time the products became more and more cannabis centric. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's we realized that there was this market that had a need. I had a mild background in mechanical engineering. I was very close to getting my mechanical engineering degree. So I was able to use a lot of the tools that I knew to start making things. And I had a lot of experience on how to make stuff, how to do injection molds, how to do dyes and tooling and stuff like that. So, yes, they were not cannabis centric in the beginning, but we knew that there was a need for some engineers to make some products that actually functioned to do what they needed. So there was this like missing thing where just there wasn't people engineering these products. There was, people were kind of like, they had ideas, but they didn't know how to turn a product that they wanted into something with a machine or a piece of equipment. So, we didn't per se invent anything or come up with any real new ideas. We were able to take open source ideas and improve upon them and make them more retail ready.
And across that kind of life cycle of your different products, at any point, did you guys think, hey, we should make our own concentrates with our own equipment and be kind of like a vertically integrated cannabis brand?
Yeah, I mean, that's things that came across where it was like, hey, should we open up a lab in Michigan? Should we open up a lab in California or Colorado? It was something that we got really excited about. But we knew that myself and my brother, through our discussions, we knew that it would just take away from what our core business was. And we knew what we were good at. And it's one of those things where I felt we were kind of dancing with an idea that could get us in trouble financially because we didn't know if we were going to be good at it. And we knew we were going to stretch ourselves pretty thin. And at the same time, the company was still growing. Today we're, 50,000 square foot building,
Wow.
45 employees. It's bustling. It's busy. There's a lot of stuff to do every day. 3 engineers. And I still wish I had time to do other things. So we wanted to do that. We couldn't do it in Illinois though. So we knew we'd have to uproot and move, and it would be difficult to manage that. On the other hand, CBD was a real thing. So we do have a processor's license for CBD, and we process CBD concentrates here in a R&D capacity only. So we really don't process anything for anybody, just for ourselves.
You're just trying to, constantly iterate upon your products and make them as best as possible. And you need to run some, real biomass through it in order to do that. That's pretty cool. I originally knew you guys as Best Value Vacs, but I understand that you guys have gone through some branding iterations alongside your product iterations. Could you talk to me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So originally we were Best Value Vacs. Everybody knew us as that. And, we had kind of a little bit of a cheesy orange and blue logo with a tornado in it because of the vacuum, and we kind of realized that as the company grew to, we have over 5,000 SKUs in-house,
Whoa.
13,000 SKUs on the website. Um, we just, I mean, the number of customers and the products that we sell and what we service didn't match the name anymore. It was Best Value Vacs, and
You're more than
that's just
just
kind of
facts. Yeah.
exactly. We were more than just Vacs, and the words were kind of hollow at the time. So most of our customers called us up and said, "Hey, is this BVV?" All right, well, we got a nickname. Um, so we got a marketing company to help us rebrand into something that was a little bit more fun, something that embodied who we really were, and really who we are at the core of things is BVV.
Yeah. Building vision and variety. That is the new acronym.
Yeah, not totally my favorite, I would say. But either way, this was a voted upon agreement. I always wanted to keep the best value vax underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree that, it still doesn't speak to what we do. And, building vision and variety was a great way to explain kind of what we do. I mean, we're always building new different things, always trying to create variety for our customer base, and we do that through a number of ways. Where our logo has the center core, like this it's kind of embodying that tornado we used to have, and it's built into 3 layers, and that those layers represent the 3 different types of customers that we have. We got the guy at home, the craftsman, the guy who's, just kind of starting out, or the guy who just wants to make his own product, and doesn't need something that's really fancy and expensive. Then we have, our professional, and we have our elite. So we have 3 different models for our extractors that kind of embody the 3 different types of customers.
Yeah, I'll admit, back in college days, I went to the University of Arizona, but I got connected in with a crew out in Oregon and went over there, and they had some kind of residential houses blowing out rooms. And that was the first time I saw BVV and the vacuums. I was just like, what is going on here? That kind of put me on this path where I'm at today. It's just you can do these things at home. Obviously be safe and understand how to use all these different pieces of equipment when it comes to extraction. But you guys have been around, and you're constantly bringing new products to the market. You said that you have 13,000 SKUs like on the website. It
Yes.
Are you guys manufacturing all 13,000 of them? You're kind of a curator of sorts.
Yeah, so we do a variety of drop shipping combined with a lot of OEM equipment. So anything that bears a BVV product name, an extractor, a vacuum oven, vacuum chamber, vacuum pump, distillation heads, glassware, anything that, even some of our consumables, our ethanols, all the different, butane tanks and all that, anything with that BVV name on it is something that we carry in-house. There are some other products like Harvest Right freeze dryers that we stock tons of, different freezer models, different types of circulators and chillers and stuff like that. So there's a large quantity of non-BVV things as well. But those items are usually ancillary pieces of equipment. And what we're known for is selling kits. So when you come to us and you buy a product, you can buy the whole product in a kit. It's a turnkey. So you don't have to try to match everything up. We already did the BTU calculations for you, so you know that this chiller works with this or this heater works with this. But the long and the short of it is I have to keep all the pieces under one building, because if
Right.
you order it, I damn well better ship that thing in 24 hours or less.
You have to assemble the kit. You got to go and get all these different parts, some that you manufacture, some that you distribute.
Yes.
So walk me through some of those kits, maybe for an entry level extractor all the way to the elite category that you're talking about. What are some of those typical kits that they're buying?
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. So a entry level extractor is a top down extractor where you just flow the butane solvent from the top to the bottom of the system through the biomass. A typical system like that would be called an Apollo. That's kind of our product range for, I would say, a more generic, what you've seen in the past type of extractor. That system is usually, obviously, the main body of the system is made out of stainless steel. And to speak to a system that would be for a low budget introductory user, would come with a carbon steel, recovery tank. You need a tank of butane. And a system like that usually runs about $1,600 for a 1 pound biomass system.
That is very
They're,
reasonable.
oh yeah. We do, the way that is assembled is we get all the parts off the shelf, and then all of those parts go to my master builders. They'll get that assembled that same day, and then it gets put under nitrogen pressure test for 24 hours so that we can verify that there are no leaks. And we use nitrogen because it's so much smaller than butane or anything, even air. So we can detect leaks in valves, fittings, anything that hasn't been taped correctly. If we can't detect it and there is a leak, we have a huge dunk tank. I will dunk the part, find the leak, and replace the part to make sure that everything that the customer gets is not only ready to go functionally, but that it's completely safe. And that would be, let's say, even for that $1,600 price range, that's what you'd be getting from us. And those valves, every single component, the valves, the way that everything's taped, they're all, built to a standard for, the Fire Protection Agency, or they're built with materials that are built to resist extreme low and extreme high temperatures, and really about longevity. It's taken me 9 years to really find all of these pieces that have culminated into something terrific. Anyway, so that would be like a basic user kind of, package.
And for those users, Jason, could you explain maybe some of the products that a grower would be looking to make with that Apollo kit?
Oh, yeah. So this is going to be a typical type of BHO system. And, you're going to have the ability to make shatter, regular snap and pull type wax. You can make your crumble, all of the stuff that kind of comes into the product range for a smokable extract at the end, kind of off your dab rig kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that same extractor, you could make diamonds. You might need some additional ancillary equipment to do it. But you would do that extraction. With those types of extraction, we usually prefer to go with something that might have a higher ability to pull out terpenes, like a propane blend where we have butane and propane blended together. And that'll give us more terpenes in the final product to help us create the diamonds. But we could do diamonds off that with some ancillary equipment, like I said. The other thing is you could do is carts. It's a little bit more work. With that system, we'd have to probably add in what we call a color remediation column. It's a small section on the extractor that we fill with different types of media: silica gel, B80 bentonite clay, or activated alumina, or in a stack of all three. And the purpose of that is to help remediate not only chlorophyll, fats, waxes, phospholipids. We can get a better, cleaner extract with that product. You don't necessarily need to do it with, let's say, a fresh frozen product. But the reason why I bring it up is if you wanted to make a cart, typically I've seen carts from like rosin where people just literally do a rosin press. They put it in a cart. I've seen good carts, and I've seen some where they're just, you can see the fats and waxes just kind of separating in the carts. Well, that would happen with this product as well. But we use the silica gel to help remediate more fats and waxes, which it actually does a really good job of. But more importantly, we would, let's say, bring in the butane really, really cold. So we could pre-chill the butane, get it down to something like -30 or colder temperature using dry ice. Bring that into the extractor, do a cold extraction through the biomass, follow that flush through the silica gel, and then we could future distill that with more equipment. But generally speaking, you can get a decent cart through that methodology.
And they're making their money back, I mean, almost immediately on that $1,600 investment, even with the additions and the inputs that you mentioned.
Generally, yeah, I would say that if it's not one, it's 2 or 3 runs. Butane, we use only instrument grade butane. It's made in America. It actually comes out of the Midwest here, but it's non-odorized, so it doesn't have any mercaptan in it. And unfortunately, it's a commodity, so it's getting more and more pricey, much like gas.
Mm.
So there are some small losses. You might lose per pound of biomass. You might lose, I think in a 1 pound, it's about 250 grams, maybe a little bit more of butane loss per run. But generally speaking, for every pound of biomass, you want to use 4 to 5 pounds of butane to run it. So there isn't a ton of a tank of butane, a 20-pound tank will cost you about $240.
Okay.
So if you recover your solvent, you're going to lose a little bit every time. But generally speaking, it's a small loss, but that does obviously have to be factored into your final product cost.
Absolutely. And I am not a chemist. I'm not an extractor. How difficult is this for maybe someone that has a ton of experience in growing and they want to try their hand at making carts or shatter, etc.? Where do they go to learn? And kind of that technical hurdle. Is it a lot for someone to learn how to do this overnight?
Yeah, it is. So I've had 10,000 customers come through the door and tell me the same thing. They're like, "Hey man, do you have a book or something I can read on how to do this?" And I'm like, "Hey man, do you have a book on how I can grow?" Okay. All right. Then we're on the same page. Okay. It's not that straightforward. Um, you know, we have our university, and that's why we started it. The BVV Extractor University that we have is designed to help customers. It's not only, some of our commercial direct customers who have a lab to train, but just the regular customer who wants to get into this and is either terrified because they don't know what they're doing or don't know how to make this investment work for them, or simply just needs the recipes, because we have those too. We call them SOPs, standard operating procedures, but our university will give people that opportunity to first go through and learn all of the different types of extraction that could be done. Maybe not even, it could be just some of the things that they're interested in, but we literally cover it all. I don't think there's anything in there that isn't covered.
Wow. And what's the price run for something like that to be a student of the university?
So right now the university is $500.
Super
And
reasonable.
yeah, we've been talking about and having some discussions. We have a pretty decent enrollment for this university, but I've always been a proponent of open sourcing things. And I think that it's something that we're working towards, because I think that there's nothing really protected here. We just put a lot of effort and time into what we're doing. And we also want to make sure we cater to the people that are part of the university with a special hand-holding type of opportunity. But we'd like to make that price a lot. We would like to reduce that price a lot, to give more access to people.
Right. So at the beginning, I mean, it's so hard to price digital content. I mean, that's the world I live in, right? It's tough. And in the beginning, you might only be able to offer it to 10, 20, 30 companies. I don't think just a normal person is going to want to, learn every single thing, maybe. But it seems like companies are going to enroll in that university, and they should have education budgets. They should be sending their extractors through, and maybe down the road you can kind of create like an entry level program to that, like a 101 or something. So that's super cool. I know we're gonna dive a little bit more in that a little bit later on. We were kind of walking through, and I took us on a tangent. Totally cool. But we were walking through the pricing, right? So and
Right.
different product lines. So we went over the Apollo for that entry level extractor, and then you had two other tranches, like a middle layer,
Yeah.
and then that elite. So maybe talk about some of those kits, pricing,
Okay.
return, products that you can make from it. What does that middle layer look like?
So the middle layer. So we just talked about the first one, and kind of, it's really hard to picture it in somebody's mind, but just imagine your biomass. You got your biomass column. It goes into a collection pot. Well, that collection pot, you now have to distill the butane out so that you're left with the oil behind. And the process by doing that is just taking that collection pot and putting it into some hot water, and let's say a 5-gallon bucket full of hot water, and it'll help boil off that butane, and then we're going to collect it into another tank. All right. Well, with the middle layer, we start bringing in a really cool tool, which is starting to use mechanical pumps that are heaters or chillers. So middle layer is same type of extractor, but we might be able to do a couple of different things. So on that 1 pound biomass, instead of just filling from the top, we could fill from the bottom and the top. So you could bottom flood your column to make sure you get full saturation. It requires more parts, hardware, hoses, and stuff like that, and a little bit more acumen to understand what you're doing. So we can bulk saturate that column, flush it, and then use some additional butane to go from the top and flush anything else remaining down. Then when that's complete, it goes into the collection base of this extractor. And again, just like every other extractor, there's nothing different at this point. You have your oil mixed in with your butane solvent. The collection base has jackets on the stainless, and those jackets are connected to, this heater over here. We're going to set for 120, 130 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to do the heating for us. So instead of having to lift the equipment up and moving it into buckets and dealing with the hassle of water, well, I just brought in the push button kind of operation here a little bit for making that water heating and vaporization of the butane a lot faster. Furthermore, there's another layer to that where previously in the previous cheaper model, you kind of got a bucket at the end of this process. And that bucket, when you're done with it, you got to scrape out everything that you want. In the second layer, there's a dish at the bottom. And that dish is what we call a splatter platter. And it's about 2 inches deep. So once you're done recovering all your butane, you just unclamp the very bottom of this extractor and pull out a dish that, is maybe about 8 inches in diameter and 2 inches deep. And there's your end product. It's done. So it has brought in a little bit of an evolution to making the extraction improving the efficacy of the extraction, and then making the recovery process a little bit easier with the jackets. Furthermore, making the actual removal of the extract easier.
So Apollo was the entry-level model. What's the name of this kit?
So this one would still be under the Apollo.
Okay.
Actually,
Apollo
correction.
2, or is there like a versioning?
So like I mentioned, our levels are like craftsman, professional, and then like elite.
That's what it is.
So
okay.
this one wouldn't be it wouldn't be an Apollo model. It'd be a different model, but similar to the Apollo model, this would be a professional level.
Yeah, the professional level. And what about raw biomass inputs, right? For all those growers listening to this, I want to help them make this decision of, well, which of the 3 categories do I fit into? So maybe price point, maybe biomass, like kind of the levels that you would expect for a client at that level. And yeah, any other details, maybe products or, the derivatives from this machine.
So we're still going to have the same end product with this machine, but with the added steel components and jacketing, you're probably looking at about $3,800 to do the same 1 pound of biomass. So your trade-off here is some convenience. Okay. But this is also starting to step into somebody like you just talked about, who's, they're not like, I got about 1 pound of biomass, every month or 2 months I run into. It's not really a big deal. This could be somebody who's like, well, every time I pull down, I got 7 or 8 pounds, and I got a lot of trim. They don't think that they need any more than a pound, but we have 2 pound models that do it. We have 5 pound models that do the same thing. They're just larger varieties of the same thing. But this would definitely be more in line with somebody who is either more willing to kind of have, your next upgrade, for like, it's just like any car, it's just, you can get the base model, and this one has a little bit more bells and whistles. But yeah, this, I would say the professional model is probably one of the more sold models that I would say go through the door every day. The elite models are far more expensive.
Okay.
So we were just talking about like a $3,800 price range on that same 1 pound biomass. Our Evo 1 pound system, and we call it the Evo because it's completely evolved into what it is today. The Evo 1 pound elite runs about $7,000.
Okay.
And that 1 pound system still does the same 1 pound we talked about on the $1,600 system. And to be honest with you, you're going to get pretty much the same result as that other system. But what we've done with that system is now you have a color remediation column that's been built into it. You don't have to buy any additional accessories. It's a top fill extractor. The bottom of the extractor base has actually got a hemispherical bottom. So there's a valve at the bottom. So just like in the previous model we just talked about with the professional, it has a heated circulator, and we can heat that butane, get it out. And when you're done, you just turn a valve and pour off your end product. You don't even have to open anything up. So the only thing you're opening up is your biomass, and that's going to be just to kind of swap it out. The other thing is it has a tank that's made out of stainless steel with it. So we have a system that is completely stainless through and through. The tank itself can be run on a chiller, which is typically a lot more expensive option, or we can put dry ice into the sleeve. And dry ice does add another consumable, but with the dry ice sleeve, it allows us to recover butane very quickly. All three of these systems, if you run them on dry ice, take about 40 minutes to recover the butane on a 1 pound system. And that's about 5 pounds of butane. The physics are what they are. You can make the ports a little bit bigger. You can apply a little bit more heat. You can get it to chug along a little bit faster. But generally speaking, I try to tell people that on the real honest side of it, it's about 40 minutes turnaround to run an extractor complete for 1 pound start to finish.
So you're really looking at time saved, potentially a cleaner, more evolved product as you go up into that elite category. Would you say that's fair to say?
No, that is fair to say. With that elite category, with these built-in color remediation, it gives you a little bit more flexibility in what you can actually have for input biomass. So color remediation, there's a couple of different schools of thought on this, but here's the real brass tacks of it all is if you had biomass that was 1 year or 2 years old and you couldn't do anything with it, and most people don't discard it, you can extract it, but it's going to come out looking like motor oil that's been in a car for 50 years. It's like sludge. It's not a sellable product. Kind of reminds me of like the RSO back in the day when sometimes I see these black syringes and I'm like, all right.
Been there.
Yeah. The color remediation, I can take a product that's 2 years old, that's not cured properly, and as long as it's still safe to consume, I mean, on a cannabis level, I would say, as long as it's still safe to consume, we can extract that and I can turn it into a nice bright amber color. So now you could resell it, you can use it, you could put it into edibles, and it's not going to change all the colors. Now you're going to have that built in with that premium top tier elite level. With the other ones, you're going to have to add some more to it. So, I could take a $1,600 base model, but that's kind of the evolution of our customers. They kind of start out somewhere and they're like, this is what I can afford. This is what I want to get. Mm-hmm. And then they come back to us and we have these nice little bolt-on kits. Here's this CRC, little stick this thing in there and plug it in like Legos. Mm-hmm. And, oh, you know what? I want to heat this thing and run faster. Oh, okay, well, let's just swap this one part out for this piece. So you can kind of just cut to the chase and buy the premium one, or you can kind of build it as you go. But either way, to answer your question, you going to that elite level gives you a little bit more flexibility. And I'll tell you, you sure as hell get a lot more time savings out of it, because the tank that you're storing your butane in has a bottom fill, or I'm sorry, it has a bottom liquid drain port. So you can pull right off the bottom of that tank, go right into the next column. You can just turn and burn your columns really quickly.
And are there other complementary product lines that you guys are selling a lot of? Maybe not a kit, but maybe like a vacuum, or, talk to me a little bit more about that full suite of products that you guys have.
Yeah. So outside of the extraction equipment, the vacuum ovens that we sell are, I like to tell people all the time that it's one of the backbone products of BVV. It's been here since almost the beginning, and we have innovated them to the point where there's just nothing else we can do with them, and they're just so rock solid. It's a product that I have customers that are coming back to, like, they got the Gen 1, and they're still asking. They're like, "Hey, I got this controller, it's broken," and I'm like, "Oh, geez, I got to go find this." Like go digging through a container.
Yeah.
So we go find what we need for them, but it's interesting that these things just don't quit. So the good news is you got a really solid product. Bad news is for me, I don't get to sell you more because they don't break. Um,
The
you
forced
know, it happens.
obsolescence of like an iPhone or something like that.
Right. And it's a really simple machine. It's just got a PID controller in it. There's not this big software program that needs firmware or updates or anything like that. So you get it, and it's an oven for set it, forget it type of operation. But yeah, that is one of the like backbone products that go with it. And you need a vacuum pump. We have a whole line of vacuum pumps that are branded for BVV. Those products complement any of our vacuum systems. So you'll need a vacuum oven, vacuum pump, and then we talked about those color remediation products. We have a variety of different products. That's a whole other interview and all in itself on explaining what those things do. But we carry all this stuff all the way up to pallet loads. I have laboratories that'll buy a pallet on a monthly basis of one product just because they go through it using it for color remediation.
Hey, thanks for watching the episode today. Did you know that we have a consulting division? We actually help design and build some of the most productive commercial facilities that you see right here on YouTube. If you need help building, retrofitting, or optimizing your commercial grow, hit that link in the description below and fill out the form. Now back to the episode. So what would you say is the most typical setup for a grower transitioning into extractions? Like run me through that entire order, that you see today.
No, absolutely. I would say we do this pretty frequently. Typically with our growers, we kind of go right to like a 5 pound system. We sell systems that are non-certified and systems that are certified. When I say certified, that's like 49 states certified. So if you were a legitimate grower in, let's say, Michigan or even in Illinois, the first thing I would take you to is a 5 pound, we call it our 5 pound Evo. It's a 5 pound rack mounted extractor. It does 5 pounds per run. And that product would be complemented with probably 3 of our 1.9 vacuum ovens. We have a cart that we built that holds 3 ovens. So you got your extractor, you got your ovens. If that customer wanted to further build out their lab, they're going to need some vacuum pumps to run, those vacuum ovens. They might need some equipment for doing distillation so that they can make their pens. Typically that conversation usually is just we talk to them about what their end product is and what they're trying to do. Sometimes it's really simple. It's like, I just need to go from extractor. We'll elute it with ethanol and we'll put it in a freezer and we'll put it in a reactor, boil off the residual ethanol, decarboxylate the material, get that into a distillation, get that run completed, and then they have pure distillate. If they need to, they can run it again. All of our glassware is actually built here in Chicago too. So typical setup for somebody that's a grower, that is a serious grower, I would say, with volume, would be going to kind of explaining what I just did right there. Outside of that, I would say for some of my home growers, that's where we kind of enter the 1 pound system,
Yeah.
Or the 2 pound system. And they just want to run 2 or 3 pounds at a time, once every 6 weeks, and they want to do it themselves. They took all that time to grow it, and they're very passionate about their hobby. And I know exactly what they've done because I've done it myself. So you just take pride in what you're making. So not only can you just say, "Hey, here's my flour. Come on, guys, have a try," and you can be proud about that. But now you can say, "Hey, I got my own cart. Oh, by the way, I made some shatter over here." So you get to kind of get into the hobbyist part of it and the artistry and like making these different products.
Yeah, the artisanal side. And that's probably where, like we were kind of talking about BVV University earlier, you are helping people through this online school, no matter where they're at in their journey with post-harvest, you're helping them. So maybe run through some of those. Are there courses? Are there just one course with like different lectures? How is the university set up and what can a student expect on day one?
So the BVV University is actually broken up into a variety of different sections, but it's just really one course. The course itself is over 20,000 words and plus 51 pages if you were to print this thing out front to back. Each section is broken up by quizzes. To move on to the next section, you got to pass the quiz. The first section starts out with safety. It's pretty big. We go over every single thing so that people can operate this stuff safely. You know, we understand that in certain states, there are laws that prevent people from doing this at home, but in other states, there are not. For example, like let's say Maine or something like that, you can have a caregiver who doesn't have very many rules to adhere to. So we try to make sure people understand that this type of equipment should be run in a C1D1 space and that safety is really paramount.
Don't blow
But it goes
yourself
also,
up.
absolutely. I want people to be safe first and foremost and have fun doing this, you know, and it can be done. And we've been doing this here for 9 years and we have all the safety equipment for ourselves. So I want people to reach out to us also if they need it, because we also sell what we have in our lab. But the other sections that are in there too, we cover distillation, isolation. We cover isolations for CBD stuff as well in there. We go into all of the different types of extraction, butane extraction. We talk about color remediation, pretty in depth in there, and how to do color remediation, what some of the different medias actually do. Just it goes on and on about the different things that you wouldn't expect to learn in any type of other course. You know, we've looked at other competitive courses that are out there, and all they do is just touch on the idea. They just tell you, oh, you can make distillate with this thing. Well, no, I'm going to tell you how to make it. I can take what we've taught you in that university. We can build a video off of that and show you the step-by-step on how to actually run this and get a product on the output. So in every one of the sections is completely repeatable. And not only that, we call out all the pieces of equipment that we're using, even if it's not ours.
That was my next question. Yeah, just trying to figure out, if you're looking to add this into your operation and you join this university, you'll have essentially a shopping cart full of options depending on, where you want to go with your products.
Right. So within that whole course, with all these sections, including even things like decarboxylation and, using a reactor to do different reactions. Outside of the courses within the university, once you have your access to it, there's also a whole section where we have off to the side all these SOPs, everything from Delta 8 and processing that and making it.
Love Delta 8.
Yeah, exactly. From that, or it could be CBD isolation, THC isolation for CBD so that you can remove the T from it. There's a whole bunch of operating procedures that we've put together in BVV's eyes, and also highlighting some of the equipment that we use to perform these things. So that way people can actually be successful with it.
And when you look at your university roadmap, what future content do you want to bring to your students? Like if you could just wave a magic wand and boom, the content's produced, what is it? What's missing?
So I want to get into chromatography. I want to go into some more advanced types of isolations of the different pieces of the cannabinoids. And it's the same thing that goes with the CBD stuff as well. There's always this hunt for more and more down to the molecular level of what people are looking at. What are these different constituents doing? How do I separate them? And what can I do with them? So I think that would be a great place for us to go, as well as some of the more advanced type of things that we can talk about with color remediation. So we've kind of like what you were just describing. Hey, is this all one course? Yes. Would I call it the introductory course to BVV? Absolutely. And then this could be like the 200 level, like taking out, that going into that away from the core products into you already have the core product.
Niche.
Exactly. So I think that that's one really cool thing that I'd love to do. The second thing that I could do if the content was like boom right there would be to have a video that's scripted off of every single section. And I just don't have the bandwidth right now to knock it out, but we're going to keep working on it.
It's a lot, like an abstract, like a 5-minute summary of what you're about to learn. Is that kind of what you're going for?
No, we're going for like if you wanted to be walked through distillation, you can sit there and watch a
Ah,
redacted version, but it'd still be an hour freaking video, but it would be redacted of all of the BS in between.
yeah.
But I know that a lot of people learn from visual stuff,
Oh, yeah.
so I think that that would help also with words don't describe certain things. If I told you that like a common question is, well, how do I know if my tails, or I'm sorry, if my heads are done on my distillation and I'm in the main body? Well, I usually tell people that I can describe what you're going to be looking for, but you won't know it until you do it like 2 or 3 times. And then after that, you'll know. So it'd be nice to have a video where I can say, hey, do you see this right here? This is where everything's starting to cut off, and give people a little bit more insider information, if you will.
For sure. What about competition? I know there are obviously public, private universities out there, like academic, you know. I don't know of any that are doing cannabis extraction degrees. There's also free public forums, like 4200, Future
Right.
4200, stuff like that. Um, where uh, where do you see the BVV University living, long term? Is it closer to the academic route? Is it closer to, kind of that freemium model, like an online forum or online university? Where does it look like?
For us, I would say, we don't have any real accreditation with any type of university or anything like that. Um, I think that we fall into the space where we're kind of part of, like you said, that premium membership to BVV. And I don't think that extractors would be maybe a course taught yet. And I could be wrong. It could be already being done and stuff like that. It's a different type of thing, though. It would be more like biochemistry type of stuff that's happening. Um, I really do feel that like the BVV University kind of fits into a place where it accompanies the customers that come along with our products, as well as our commercial direct customers with ongoing training. Um, you know, I'll be honest with you, just dealing with some of the commercial grows here in Illinois, there isn't this huge budget with our craft grow guys. We're talking about 5,000 square feet of canopy here. They don't have a budget to hire a guy to sit around and do extractions all day long. They don't have the biomass for it. Second of all, so what I think is going to end up happening is these guys are going to need some additional support. Um, you're going to have a guy who wears many hats there. He might be like, hey, I'm the guy that does growing. And by the way, now I'm doing the extraction. So I'm looking at this as an opportunity to help support my ongoing customers and give them an outlet so they're not stranded. It's like any type of support you'd get for software. You bought this, you came along with me for the ride. I'm going to continue to help you. And also gives them a path for innovation. We have a lab here. So it's like, hey, how do we co-support what they're doing? When they have a problem, we can help them solve it. Well, let's just grab some equipment. Let's go down to their facility where it's legal to do this processing and go help them with it. So I'm looking at it as a tool to not only create a partnership with these guys, but also to support them. And that's on the commercial side. So that's one of the pieces. As far as, for BVV, I think that at the moment, customers recognize what equipment we sell, would like to maybe entertain growing their abilities with different types of processes, and can look at the university as a legitimate way for me to show you that that's done. And it's different from the online forums. You got to cut through all the crap. They're not, online forums aren't bad. It's just everybody has a
It's
different
free.
way to do things. Yeah, and it's free.
Yeah, I have a online forum about 20,000 growers around the world, and um, it's free. It's public. Anyone can join at, growersnetwork.org. But it's not supposed to be that resource that teaches you every single thing that you need to do, right? I recommend seeking out a paid course to get that in-depth review. If you want to, share your run, share your garden, share, your next harvest with other people that you can celebrate, commiserate with. Forums are great. You can make a lot of friends and make a lot of connections. But I think when it goes to that continued education, you need something like BVV University.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I know that our customers very confide in us with our decisions and answers. We're not always right. I mean, nobody is, but I think that it speaks volumes when I see these customers coming back through our chat, our email. They can call us. I mean, we're here 9 to 5. They know that we're a resource when they're like, hey, this is the problem and I need to solve it. So, not only does that university have this, after hours learning ability, but you can still get reinforcement from the company you bought it from.
Yeah, you guys are always available. And I think, when it comes to family-based companies, there's just another layer of empathy that I've found with companies, especially in the cannabis industry. They go the extra mile, that's for sure. I've always had this idea, similar to a Cannacribs garden deep dive, but doing it for extractors. Like doing a 35-minute episode on YouTube where we go into one of your clients' labs and we actually show the world how they make these products and, of course, the equipment that they use. So I don't know. I wasn't planning on bringing that up, but if you're interested, and if the fans are interested listening to this, let's produce a pilot or something. I think that would be super dope.
Yeah, no, we definitely can. And one of the things that we have here at BVV is I got a 2,000 square foot lab with 5
Wow.
fume hoods and a full C1D1 space.
We should
We
film
have,
that.
yeah, I mean, our customers come in here and their eyes just light up because there's always something going on in one fume hood, doing something new or R&Ding something or testing a new piece of glassware where we change the geometry a little bit. We got to make sure that it works. And we've also discussed having, with some of the different groups we work with in Chicago, having, an on-site, after hours, 150 people, guests,
Yeah.
and different stations in the lab so they can see what this actually is. So yes, I would take you up on your offer. We could definitely do that. I mean, we're primed and ready, and it's something that we can definitely do. I'd be doing it with, a CBD, but it's going to be done exactly the same way. We could take hemp and
Yeah.
extract it, and it's just the same. It's really
Yeah.
cool.
It's just a percentage of THC. Yeah. I mean, I think the farm bill and everything that led to where we're at right now with CBD, it's opened a lot of doors for research and development. And I
Oh, yes.
think, that's an amazing thing. It's going to help us push everything forward. And then I was also curious, there's this company, Agrify. I saw them for
Yeah.
the first time at MJ Biz this past year. And it looks like they are acquiring a lot of extraction companies. So what's your hot take on that? Are they becoming the extraction expert in the market? Are they becoming kind of like a house of brands for post-harvest solutions? Where does that company kind of compete with like a BVV, for example?
My take on it is what you just said, the house of brands. They have taken on expertise from Lab Society, from Precision,
Mm-hmm. And they're out of Detroit,
uh,
Michigan, I
and
think.
and Cascade Sciences.
Yeah, Cascade
Correct.
Ovens.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I always think of all these different companies and different things that have been happening.
Yeah, a
And
lot of
you did
movement.
touch on a thing. There's a lot of that happening in the space. There's been these companies kind of coming together in the equipment world. But yeah, I think they're kind of a house of brands. But I wouldn't dumb it down. I'm just making it. They've put together this group, and that group is aligned with a bunch of expertise. Question was,
Yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting model, like they have these post-harvest companies, like you mentioned, Precision, Lab Society, Best Value, or no, not, that's you guys. Cascade
Cascade.
ovens, those blue Cascade ovens, right? But they also have some cultivation companies. I think they have like an LED, and they're really going for that vertical cultivation model. So I don't know. It's just interesting to see that play out and where the market's going, and just was kind of curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I think that we're going to continue to see more of this consolidation or corporatization or whatever you want to call it these days with people in the industry. I think there's going to be a slowdown in the equipment space just because there's only so many extractors you can sell commercially.
Yeah.
And, those customers also are kind of hard to find, even in Illinois. They're like, oh, we released all these different people that have grow licenses, but they're not really attached to a specific name. It's maybe a company, or you're going to hunt down who they are. So finding the person is like finding a needle in a haystack that needs to spend a whole bunch of money on an extractor. Takes a lot of resources to do that, or marketing. So I think that the benefit that they have is that they have a really good marketing team behind them, because they can cover a lot of ground very quickly, and also having all these different touch points. Oh, I have somebody from Lab Society who's buying glassware, and by the way, they need this, call this guy. So I think that it's a pretty neat thing that's happened. But for us at BVV, we've been working on our own vertical integration as well. We have our own lights as well. We've done.
Is that right? I did not know that.
So our commercial grow lights, they're DLC listed.
They're BVV like LED, or what's the brand?
Yeah. They're under Neocision, because anything Neocision with BVV is anything certified. Certified meaning like our Evo extractor would be considered a Neocision product. So when customers are commercial and looking for things for a lab, we go straight to Neocision branded products. It's still our brand. It's just how we separated BVV regular products from certified ETL, UL, whatever type of certification that will allow them to be placed into a lab, or when you're applying for permits and all that kind of stuff, and you got to file all the documentation that goes with that, you're going to have to show that process skid meets some type of certification. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let me grab it real quick. Happen to have one back here in the conference room. So we have we have our grow lights that we have here. The red one on the top is our Spectra Elite. And we have our Pro series below that. And then we have a veg, and the same size with that veg is a 3-bar. We have like I would say like our Craftsman model, like we have with our extractors. All three of those products are available on our website and everything like that. But our commercial ones are only through Commercial Direct. So we can work with, if somebody was interested in buying those products, we can get them, quotes and stuff like that to get them. But we've actually done a very, very good job in the last few years. I'm very proud of the lighting division that has brought us more opportunity in the commercial space. So our opportunity here for the commercial space was not just necessarily to sell grow lights, but was to connect with people who might need extraction equipment. If you're building a grow facility and you're buying lights, I can sell you extractor equipment. If you can't grow anything, I can't sell you extractor equipment. So it all made sense.
Yeah, no, that completely makes sense. I was unaware of that. And are there other product divisions that maybe we didn't talk about today? I mean, that's a lot. The lights, the extraction, it's a lot. But I was just curious if you guys had any other divisions on top of that.
Nothing that's separate. I mean, we, through that lighting division, we can go from foundation to seed. It's something that we do have the ability to do full service consulting with people. Now, obviously, the product cycle on something like that can be years. So it's a little bit different, and it takes a little bit more time, but we kind of have two different wings here. And that's, in that lighting division, I can help people with bench layouts, and getting quotes for all that stuff in a couple of hours or a couple of days, depending on, what their needs are. Even simple, sprung buildings that can be put up, in 6 to 12 weeks and get people operating. On the other side of the house, we got the extraction side. Do you need an extraction space? We can help spec out an extraction room with you, get a quote, get it ordered, and build a C1D1 booth or a laboratory space for you. Those, again, they're long product cycles. We just got to fill out what the customer's needs are. And then also with the extraction stuff, what do you plan on doing? So there's just kind of two different things that we have in those two different divisions, but both of them are pretty big on the full service side.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, American made manufacturing, private family company. I'm sure that you guys have some pretty big goals for the next 5, 10 years. Do you guys see yourself remaining private and family run forever? Are you guys pretty on board with that, or is there ever talks or murmurs in the hallways or family barbecues? What if we did sell or this or that?
Yeah, I mean, we always had discussions about having the opportunity to maybe sell, but the point of doing it was because we wanted to get more customer base. So I wouldn't just sell to the sake of selling because someone wanted to buy the company. I would be interested in partnering with somebody who had maybe packaging, maybe they had,
Like a
a,
platform or some
a platform
strategy?
of right, and maybe they had some grow facilities under their belt. Maybe they had places that could be potential demo places, demonstration facilities for what the company did. I think that's kind of a needle in a haystack kind of pipe dream type thing. So I don't really spend a lot of my time thinking about it. I know that on a day-to-day basis, I love what I do here. I think a lot of the employees that have worked here for a very long time, some of them over 7 years, love what they're doing here too. So I try to keep my head grounded and focus on what I have in front of me. But, like you asked, we do have those talks. But for now, I know where I'm going to be working for the next 10 years, and it's right here.
It's a perfect way to wrap it. Thank you so much for your time, Jason. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you hopefully in the near future.